Morning, everyone. Today's reading is in Psalm 23. The Lord is my shepherd. I lack nothing. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside quiet waters. He refreshes my soul. He guides me along the right paths for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the darkest valley, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely your goodness and love will follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever.
Thank you, Tim. What a great reading voice. Let's hear it for Tim. I'm like, I can't follow that. During the month of August, we're not doing any series that are connected with a theme. We're doing individual one-off, one-hit wonders. And I was invited to speak this week, and I wanted to take my all-time favorite psalm of all time. My all-time favorite psalm of all time is Psalm 23. And Tim has read it for us really, really well, but I want us to just delve into it. And as we delve into it, I want us to ask the question of ourselves: how close do you feel to God right now? How close do you feel to Jesus right now? How intimate do you feel him? How close is he in his presence with you? And how many of you actually feel a desire to be closer to Jesus? Thanks for that special effect. This is a psalm that teaches us about the presence of Jesus, that he is good, that he cares for us. But there's a psalm that has more to it than meets the eye. It's one of those things that you have to kind of get into to get the best out of it. How many of you have heard Psalm 23 before? Would you say it's a fairly well-known, fairly standard psalm? In fact, if you've been in church, you'd have heard Psalm 23 a whole bunch of times. If you're new to church, maybe watching online, this is all a little bit of an exploration for you. Maybe not so much. But Psalm 23, for any length of time that you go to church, you will probably hear it. It is probably the most famous psalm of all. And there's a lot to unpack from this psalm, even though it's a simple psalm. And one of the most helpful things to do is to understand how it is written, because the psalm is a song. Everyone say, it's a song. In other words, it's a song, so it's like a poem to music. Now, you might not know how poetry works in the Bible. It might not look very poetic to you. In the English kind of way of understanding, the kind of European way of understanding poetry, we have rhyme. So if it is a poem, it rhymes. Things rhyme with one another. Roses are red, violets are blue, sugar is sweet, and so are you. Blue, you. It rhymes. That's a great poem. But if I wrote to you this poem, roses are red, violets are blue, I'm not much of a poet, as you can tell, you'd say, Philip, that's a rubbish poem. But if you were Jewish, and if you were an ancient Jew living in the time of David 3,000 years ago, you'd say, wow, what a great poetry. You have a tremendous way with words. Because the way that Jewish ancient poetry, the way that biblical poetry works, is that it works with something called parallelism. Everyone say parallelism. Say it 3 times very fast. Parallelism. It basically means you hold one thing and then you hold another thing in parallel. you have these kind of pairs, these couples, these matching parts that go together in parallel. Now, quick bit of poetry. Stick with me, this is going to be helpful, trust me. You've got 3 types of parallelism. The first kind is compare and contrast. So if we said, roses are red, violets are blue, that's actually a parallelism. It's compare and contrast, because a rose is red and a violet is blue. They're different. They are opposite. You contrast them. You compare them. That is compare and contrast parallelism. It's used a lot in Scripture. Once you've seen this, you'll never be able to unsee it. So, Proverbs chapter 10, for example, says this: a wise son brings joy to his father, but a foolish son brings grief to his mother. Compare and contrast. It's parallel. One is wise, one is foolish. Look at the difference. If we want to talk about foolish kids, let's talk about the wise kid first. So compare and contrast. Parallelism. The other kind of parallelism, number 2, is say it again. Everyone say it again. Say it again. So you say the same thing, but in different words. Roses are red, bright blooms of scarlet. It's like you're saying something in another kind of phraseology just to make it sound poetic and beautiful. You say the same thing. You're emphasizing it to make a point. So Psalm 24 says this: the earth is the Lord's and everything in it, the world and all who live in it. Oh, that's great poetry. See what he did there? Parallelism. Say it again. The world is the Lord's and everything in it. Say it again. The world and all who live in it. But there's a third kind of parallelism. And this is really cool. This is you complete me. And what this does is it fills out the meaning. It expands the meaning. It takes it to another level. So roses are red and their beauty crowns the day. So you have that first bit of the parallel, roses are red, but then you expand upon it. You make it more fulfilling, more meaningful. You get a better point out of it. Roses are red and their beauty crowns the day. So in Psalm 19, this is a complete me kind of parallelism. The law of the Lord is perfect, reviving the soul. And then the parallel that completes and fulfills and adds and expands, the testimony of the Lord is sure, making wise the simple. So I found out about the law of the Lord, but then it told me about the testimony of the Lord. I found out that one thing is perfect and it revives me, but not only that, but the law, the testimony that God has, it's sure, it's dependable, and it makes you wise. And when you get into this parallelism, all of Psalms and all of the kind of poetic writings of Scripture, they're done in this. Okay, right. You say, very good, Philip, that was mildly interesting. Oh, you have no idea. We're going to go deeper. Everyone say deeper. We go deeper. This is something that happens on a broad scale, not just line by line, verse by verse, sentence by sentence. It actually happens on the macro level right through a whole piece of poetry. Parallelism. It's the heart of Hebrew poetry. And so in a really cool psalm, sometimes in prophetic utterances, you'll see parallelism, not just in the lines individually, but in the whole thing. So the first half is one side, and the second half is the parallel side. And Psalm 23 is incredible because every single line uses parallelism, and it uses the you complete me parallelism. In other words, it takes a concept and then it makes it bigger, more exciting, more engaging, more interesting. But it also works at the huge level because it mirrors itself. I'm going to show you. The best way to do this is it's graphical. So if we get this V on the screen, the first half of the poem is in the shape of a V. Everyone say shape of a V. I'm really sorry about this. Yesterday I was speaking at a youth event. I was speaking to teenagers and I need to get it out of my system. I'm treating you like you're 14 years old, but that's not a bad strategy for preachers. But this V thing, what it does is that the psalm starts broad, and then it hones in, it gets more intense, and then it reaches a peak, an apex, an inflection point, a climax, the whole crux of the psalm. And then what it does is another V mirrors it, and it moves out of that crisis moment, that crux, that inflection point, and then it begins to parallel mirror itself to the end. And then it's broad and expansive, and the whole thing is incredibly satisfying. That is what Psalm 23 is all about. Psalm 23 has that kind of structure. So if you put Psalm 23, well, let's first of all give it its proper name. We're going to learn some theology. This is called a chiasm. Everyone say chiasm. Why is it called a chiasm, you say, Philip? It's called a chiasm because it looks like the letter chi in the Greek alphabet, which is basically an X. We call it an X. So if this was us calling it, we'd call it Xism. But it's chiasm. Chiasm. But I like to think that it is in the shape of a kiss. So if you think, well, I don't know about that poetry stuff. I'm not sure about the parallelism. But I came away from Fishponds Baptist Church this Sunday knowing that Psalm 23 is in the shape of a kiss. It's God's love letter to us. It's a kiss between us and Jesus. It's in the shape of an X. It's in the shape of a kiss. So we put the psalm, superimpose that on, and that's basically how it works with the X. Let me explain it, and then we'll deep dive. So 1 and 6, verses 1 and 6 are mirrored together. So let's see that 1 and 6 together. So 1 and 6 go together. 1 is a parallel of 6. They're on opposite ends. And then 2 is a parallel of 5. And then 3 is a parallel of... But this is the cool thing. This is what will unlock this psalm for you. This is what will allow it to become something that's not just, oh, that's nice words, those are pretty sentiments, that makes me feel encouraged, through to, oh my gosh, this changes how I see and feel and think about God. Because the key thing happens at the inflection point, at the apex of the cross, at the center of the kiss. The whole psalm revolves and pivots around that one point. And the most important part of the whole psalm is the center of the X. That changes everything. That makes all the difference. That is the thing that transforms our understanding. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to go through verse 1, verse 2, verse 3, verse 4, verse 5, verse 6. Start off with verse 1. The Lord is my shepherd, I lack nothing. Right, what does this tell you about the Lord? Well, it's that the Lord is the Lord. What does it tell us about us? If the Lord is my shepherd, what are you? A sheep. Now, did you know that this is not a compliment? Sheep is nature's victim. Sheep are very, very stupid. If someone calls you a sheep, it is not meant to increase your self-worth. Sheep has the brain the size of a chicken's brain. And sheep are afraid of everything. Sheep are preyed on by everything. In the time when this is being written, sheep have predators which are lions, bears, hyenas, large birds, small dogs, even flies. You know, the fly lands in the sheep and lays a little egg. The egg becomes a maggot. It's all over for the sheep. That's it. It's gone. Thank you for playing. Sheep today in Australia, $100 million of sheep livestock are lost every single year to fly infestation because the sheep is basically helpless. It cannot help itself. It is frightened of everything, and it has no defenses whatsoever. It doesn't have talons. It doesn't have claws. It doesn't have quills. It can't run. It can't bark. It doesn't have venom. It has nothing. You take a domestic cat. That cat, when confronted with danger, it can arch its back and it's hiss. That's why I don't like cats. They always hiss at me. Or a dog can bare its teeth and bark. A sheep basically just dies. They've got nothing. You know, if you release a domestic animal into the wild, then it's got a fighting chance of lasting at least through the night. If you release a sheep into the wild, you just gave nature a snack. They are so defenseless, so helpless. They're not aspirational creatures. No one ever said, hey, I'm going to get a tattoo on my arm of a sheep. It doesn't happen. Because sheep are losers, pathetic, helpless. They cannot help themselves. So why does the Bible say that we are sheep? Why does the Bible keep coming back to that whole sheep thing? No one aspires to being a sheep. You got the Lion of the tribe of Judah. Why can't we be in Jesus' lion pride? We're all lions together. Rah. Why are we sheep? Who wants to be a sheep? Well, it depends on who is your shepherd. Because if the Lord is my shepherd, I'm fine. I lack nothing. One of the great discoveries of following Jesus is knowing that I can do nothing in myself. There's no such thing as a self-made man, just as there's no such thing as a self-made sheep. You are liable to any moment disaster. We can't save ourselves from heartache or pain. We can't save ourselves from sickness. Jesus said, who out of you can add a single hour to your life? We are helpless. You can't control or affect what happens to you. You can't preserve yourself against loss or grief, financial collapse. Nations, we look at nations, we see nations flattened. We see people's lives upended and turned around. But the psalmist says, I'm a sheep. I know that I'm helpless. I know that I'm weak. I know that I'm potentially at danger from so many avenues and areas, but the Lord is my shepherd. And because of that, I lack nothing. It doesn't mean that there's a prosperity gospel where God gives me everything I want, ka-ching, give your life to Jesus and watch the money roll in. No, it just means that whether I'm in plenty or I'm in want, I don't feel a sense of lack or want because I have the Lord, Jehovah, Yahweh, the great I am, the God of the cosmos. He is my shepherd. So verse 1 says this, he cares for me. Everyone say, he cares for me. Turn to the person next to you and say, he cares for you. He cares for you. He cares for me. That's such a great thing. So then the psalm then builds on it. Verse 2 says this, he makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside quiet waters. He refreshes my soul. This is how it starts off broad. He's generally good. He's my shepherd. All is good in the hood. Okay, what do you mean? Well, let me bring it down a little bit. Let me just bring that V in a bit closer. What he does, he makes me lie down in green pastures. In other words, I don't have to make myself do anything. I don't have to make myself do stuff. God can make me. How do you make a sheep lie down? Anyone know? I'll tell you, they will only lie down when they have a completely, totally full belly. When you have fed and when you are sated as a sheep, that's when you lie down. So what the psalmist is saying is, I'm like a sheep that gets my fill. He makes me lie down. And then he says that he leads me beside quiet waters. That's not just a nice walk. That is so I can drink cool, lovely, refreshing water. He refreshes my soul. It's so, so good. And that's how the Jewish ancient Hebrew shepherds worked. Not like our guys with Range Rovers and dogs who chase and harry the sheep. But the shepherd in the times of the Bible would lead from the front. God doesn't harry us. God doesn't hassle us. Kate and I were just reminiscing about a wonderful time in our lives a few years ago when she ruptured a disc in her back and was in tremendous agonizing pain. And I, playing squash, ruptured my Achilles tendon, and I spent 2 weeks wearing one of those boots, again, in exquisite pain. But it came to our holiday, and we were going to go to France to meet up with my family. And thank the Lord, Kate was able to get out of bed. We'd both had physio. And I had I went to the Southmead, and I said, please take this boot off me. I know that I'm 2 weeks away from when it should really come off, but I think I can walk on it. And I've got to go to holiday, and I don't want crutches. I want to be able to walk because we're going on an easy jet. We're going on the plane. And we've got our 2 children. They're 3 and they're 5. And I could do it. I'll be very, very brave, very, very strong, and I'll do it. And Kate's like, I can walk with my back, and we'll be fine. And so we said to the girls, right, we can't drive, which is what we would normally do, hire a car, but we will get a train, and then we'll meet Grandma and Grandad and have a lovely holiday. 3 and 5 years old. And so we said, Mummy's got a bad back, Daddy's got a bad leg. So you are going to have to carry all the luggage. You can do that, can't you? So we loaded them up with these rucksacks and then other extra bags. We got off the plane, we landed in Paris, and then we had to catch the train, but we were running late. And so we said to the girls, hurry, hurry. And they're loaded down with these rucksacks, and Zoe's got this thing that's practically pulling her head off, another bag, and Isabel's got one on her head. And they're going ahead of us, and we're saying, hurry, 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 go, 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 go. And we're harrying them like sheep. Go, 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 go. And the French, they were not happy with us. Because you know the French, the only thing that they love more than their children is their dogs. And they were not happy with the way that we were handling our children. They would say, regardez les Anglais, les pauvres enfants, maman, père, regardez le petit enfant, faites attention. And we're going, yes, pardonnez-moi, I broke j'ai cassé ma jambe. They looked at me, I'm walking normally. They say, vous n'avez pas cassé la jambe. Vous êtes un mauvais parent. Vous êtes un monstre. Putain. And it was one of the most excruciatingly embarrassing times of my life. But very often we feel that that's how God drives us. He's like a UK shepherd in his tractor or his Range Rover, and he's got his border collie, and he's nipping at our heels, and he's driving us on, and he's saying, come on, be good, buy a chair. And he's just hassling us the whole time. Please do buy a chair. But the psalmist says, he refreshes me. He refreshes my soul. He leads me. We need to know that God isn't a God that drives us aggressively, harries us, drives us with guilt, drives us with compulsion, but he walks ahead of us and he leads us into great places where we can be refreshed. We can have a pastoral feast. We can lay down with full stomachs and mouths that are filled with refreshing, glorious, still water, not rushing water that's going to be dangerous for us because we are just sheep. We're very, very vulnerable. Still, quiet waters. Then verse 3 says this, he guides me along the right paths for his name's sake. In other words, he walks with me. He cares for me, he refreshes me, he walks with me. Everything is good. Do you know when you're a believer, God takes care of everything? You don't lack anything. He provides for you. He gives you all your needs. He gives you guidance. He leads you. He puts you in the right places. Everything is good in your life, and everything will always be good in your life. And it is wonderful following Jesus, and it is pure joy. Blessed assurance, Jesus is mine. Oh, what a transport of joy that I'm in, because he's with me, and all my needs are met. And then crux, apex, the most important part, where the X meets its mirror image. And it's verse 4. It starts with this. Even though I walk through the darkest valley. That is what changes everything. That's what the point of the psalm is. Buried right at the very heart, the core of this poem is this phrase, even though I walk through the darkest valley. Sometimes people will try to tell you that if you follow Jesus, everything is roses, roses of red, bright blooms of scarlet. Everything is good, everything is easy. Sugar is sweet. Following Jesus is going to inoculate you from pain. Following Jesus is going to save you from disaster. Just release your fears to Jesus. He'll take care. You'll never have any problems. You'll never have any doubt. And yet, the psalm says, we do walk through the darkest valleys. Even though I walk, hang on a minute, you were just guiding me through good paths 1 minute ago. Now I'm in a dark valley. What is this? What is this all about? Where did God suddenly go? And then it carries on, verse 4. Even though I walk through the darkest valley, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. Did you notice what just changed in this psalm? Do you notice something fundamental just changed? And it changed on the inflection point. It changed at the moment of crisis. It changed in the darkest valley. What changed? The Lord is my shepherd, I lack nothing. He leads me. He leads me. He restores, he refreshes, he guides me. Now it is you. You are with me. There's a point in the Christian experience when we move from he to you, where we move from knowing about God to knowing God intimately. I want to ask the question, how do you see your relationship with God? Is it somewhere where that he's he, that he's kind of remote, that you love him, that you trust him, that you believe him, but he's he? Or is it that you know him so well that you can say, hi, you're with me. Your rod, your staff, they comfort me. Because here's the thing. It is actually almost always, and I'm sorry if this is a hard thing to hear, but it is so often as we go through the dark valleys that God goes from he to you. It is a truth that we can experience God in a greater, more intimate way in the midst of the valley. He doesn't say, even though I walk through the valley, you take me out of it. He says, you walk with me. So that's the fourth point. You walk with me. No longer is it he walks with me, leads me, guides me, but you walk with me. If you're going through a difficult time, if you're experiencing challenge, if you're in a time of waiting, where you've been waiting patiently for God to come through for you on something, these are the times when God wants you to know Psalm 23 is for you. You can experience a revolution, an inflection point, a turning when God goes from someone out there to someone who you know so much more clearly and deeply. That your suffering and your challenge is not wasted because Jesus walks with you in it. I remember just a couple of years ago, I was upset. And I was having a difficult time with God. And I felt like he wasn't really coming through for me. And I was praying faithfully in the morning, my morning kind of devotional time. And I said, God, where are you? Where are you, God? Where are you right now? I need you right now. It feels like a dark valley that I'm going through. I am challenged. Speak to me. And I just waited. Speak to me, God. Speak. Nothing. Thanks for nothing, God. That was great. You gave me nothing. Okay, right, next best thing. Let me think about the last time that you spoke to me in a very clear way. So I flipped into my journal and I looked up the last time that God spoke to me in a clear way. I found a story. I found a time that I'd been praying for God to send someone to give me a word from Jesus. And I said, Lord, I want it to be someone that I don't know, and I want it to be a word that's going to encourage me. And then one day, randomly, I was running down through the downs, just doing my kind of normal run. And a car overtook me and stopped. And then the woman got out of the car and flagged me down. And I said, hi. And she said, you're Philip, aren't you? I said, yes. She said, I have a word from the Lord for you. And she gave me a Bible verse. And it said, well done, good and faithful servant. I said, thank you very much. And I wrote it in my journal. So there I am back praying. God's not saying anything. Months have passed. And so I said, Lord, you said this to me before. Well done, good and faithful. Is this still a word from, are you still wanting to speak to me? Or has it passed its expiry date? Used by, and we've gone past it. Or was it just a random thing with someone who's recognized me from church, is just trying to be nice? What is this? I just gave a little bit of space. And in that darkest valley, I felt the shepherd of my soul take my hand and say, no, it's still true. It's still from me. So I was encouraged, and I went to work. I had to go onto Facebook to post something for a church thing we were doing. And I went on, there's a message for me. And I looked up the message, and I saw, that's an odd coincidence. It's a message from the woman who stopped her car and gave me the original verse. And she said, Philip, I was praying for you this morning, and God told me to give you the verse again. Well done, good and faithful servant. And I looked at the timestamp, and it was the exact moment to the minute when I had been praying and saying, is this from you? Give me a word. Even though I walk through the darkest valley, you're with me. You're with me. Your rod and there's your stuff. They comfort me. Still hurts, still difficult, still painful, but I'm comforted. And suddenly I get to know Jesus. When we are in challenging times, and if you're in a challenging time now, this is encouragement. If you're not, this is one to put in your back pocket for when those times come. We can experience a closeness. I remember just thinking, oh my goodness, this is what you're going to judge me for this. Please don't judge me for this. But when this thing happened to me, do you know what I said? I said, oh my goodness, there is a God. Because, I know him, but suddenly he became you. And that is what God wants. And there's something that we can only experience of God as we go through those challenging times, but as we hold on to Jesus. And I've seen people go through challenging times and they've lost faith. Maybe you've had that experience. You just feel like, where was God when? Why did God not? And we lose faith. But the psalm says, oh, no, stay for the inflection point. Stay for the X. Stay for the cross. Stay for the moment of change and revolution. You care for me. And then we just walk it through. Verse 5 mirrors verse 2. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows. In other words, you refresh me. So before I had a nice grass and water meal. Now the imagery is one of a royal banquet that's been put on by a king, and I am the guest of honor. And look, my enemies are there. Well, I would really rather my enemies weren't there. I would really rather you get rid of my enemies. But nonetheless, God says, even in the midst of your enemies, even in the midst of your challenges and trials, I'm putting on a banquet. I am lavishing you with the highest accolades and honor that can be given. You're having not just grass, you're having the richest of feasts, and my cup overflows. Cup of wine. What does Jesus always do? He turns water into wine. But there's something about these experiences where I hold on to Jesus, where you refresh me, but it's greater than I could have ever imagined. And then finally, it gets absolutely epic. Surely your goodness and love will follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. The Lord is my shepherd. I will dwell in the house of the Lord. But no longer is it like I'm a sheep. Now, I'm in the house of God. I'm in the presence of El Shaddai, Yeshua, the God of the cosmos. I'm in his house forever. I get a future far greater than I can possibly comprehend. And you care for me. You care for me. But in such a great, great, wonderful way, so much more awesome. Out of the field into the palace. From a sheep to a child, an heir, a son of God, a child of God. This is such a wonderful psalm, but it makes so much more impact on our lives when we understand that actually the dark valleys are not an aberration, but they're part of the journey. And he's still the shepherd that leads, and he's still the Lord that cares, but we get to know him in a way that is more intimate, more compelling, more powerful, and more personal than we can ever possibly imagine. So, if you're experiencing challenge and difficulty, if you're wrestling with questions, if you're grappling with doubt, you just need to know. Psalm 23. In the shape of a kiss, that even though you walk through the darkest valley, he is there with you. I'd like us to pray, and I'd like us to take just a moment just to just examine our hearts before God. So why don't we just bow our heads, close our eyes. I want to pray specifically, particularly for those that have resonated with this message. That actually, there is challenge and there is a degree of darkness, and you feel like you're surrounded by enemies. You're aware of your weakness, your vulnerability. And you just want to use this as a time to press into Jesus, to open yourself up to a deeper, more intimate experience of his presence. If that's you, just raise a hand where you are. I'm just going to pray especially for you, that God would really be close to you. Okay. Okay. You can put your hands down. Father, I want to pray. I want to pray particularly for those who feel like they're going through the dark valley of shadow. Lord, you know exactly what that is. You know what it looks like. But I want to pray that they would know you in a way so much more intimate and powerful than they've ever experienced before. I pray that they would be transformed as you lean in towards them with a kiss. And Lord, I want to pray for every single one of them. I want to pray for every single one of us. Lord, I want to pray that we would be people who know that we are the sheep of your pasture, that you walk with us, you refresh us. And I want to pray that we would be a flock that draws in others, that brings in. I want to pray that we'd reflect the good shepherd nature of Jesus and go after the lost sheep, that they might all be brought in. And I pray, Lord God, that we would know in increasing measure, you care for us. In the name of Jesus.